The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome back to another fantastic K4Wins.com. This is the K4Win Brothers. We've got Kip Keefer, the chief editor, of course, of the Las Vegas Sun out there in beautiful Las Vegas. We have Kip Keefer, who's the executive director of the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, and he has been handicapping ball games forever, as is my good friend Kai Gregory up in the top left-hand corner like the Brady Bunch. He's getting after it. He knows exactly what's going on in the world of games. And, of course, I worked at ESPN and did sports radio for 25 years, and we get the 4Ks together, and we handicap ball games. And before we get into it, we are totally transparent on everything that we do, not only on this show, but if you want more plays, you go to K4Wins.com. We've got a ton of free plays. Everything's free. Everything's get up there. Check it out. But tell us how we did this past week. I know we had a couple of huge underdogs. We had a couple of huge plays. I know we had a couple missers too, Kai.
Yeah, I went 19-10 Saturday through Monday. Not bad. Fifth winning weekend in a row. We are 77, 44-2 overall, 64%. I don't think you can. Yeah, I don't know how long that we can maintain that 64%, but that's a pretty good percentage. And we did kick off our at K4 Winners on X, Twitter, whatever you call that, yesterday with a 2-0-1 day. So if you can't get anything here, you can always go to at K4 Winners on Twitter, X, whatever it is now, and we post our plays there daily as well. Our
local games, awesome. UAB hosting Navy, a game that is a revenge game of sorts. They lost 31-6 last year up in Navy land, Oklahoma, Auburn, and of course the Georgia-Alabama mix-up, which we're going to be into big time this show. We'll talk a lot of college football, but we do have hockey kicking off here in a couple of weeks, which I'm super excited about. I wasn't a big hockey fan until my son got me involved in it. Then I started doing a show with the Kip Keefer. He's out in Las Vegas, seems like almost every weekend with his son and his grandsons right there on the glass. And we're going to have some hockey plays as well. And just from a handicapping standpoint, Case, what's the biggest difference? A lot like baseball, I guess, but just not as much scoring. How has that number come out for hockey?
Yeah, to be honest, I think it's a lot easier. The market is that there's not, tens of millions of dollars on every game. So I feel like it is a little softer. If you really want to dive into it and get to know it, I feel like there's some real opportunities there. Obviously, it's a popular sport, but not on the level of football. I kind of mentioned before we came on air, I've been really in hockey mode the last 2 days, getting our Vegas Golden Knights preview magazine together. I haven't bet a whole lot yet, but I'm getting my numbers together, getting it ready. I will tell you, I know this is a popular team. People are going to be betting them coming the next 2 weeks. Go ahead and get down now. I really like the New Jersey Devils. That's the one team I've really attacked futures-wise already. I think those are the only bets I've made. So, that's my one hockey nugget for today. They had a nightmare season last year. Everyone got hurt. Still one of the most talented rosters. I think the Devils make it count this year.
You like the Devils for what? Team wins, regular season, hockey championship, Stanley Cup,
regular season points, I bet. And I bet Stanley Cup and Eastern Conference, I believe, at 18-1 and 9-1. Now, the way I do this is I'll probably bet, I'd say, at least 5 or 6 teams by the end. I just kind of try to build a portfolio, try to, buy the ebbs and flows throughout the season. But I really think they're a team that could get off to a hot start. And I don't necessarily think you're going to see prices like that once the year gets going. So, I'm not saying steadfast right now they're winning the Stanley Cup, but, at the price, do I think they have better than a 7% chance or whatever? Yeah, I really do. I think they're one of the teams I'm higher on.
We're going to be giving you all of our plays, and most of us come with 2 or 3 or 4 different kind of plays, and we'll have some underdogs on our television show on ABC 3340, which airs here regionally right here in the Birmingham area with Kip Keefer, myself, Tony Kurre on ABC 3340 on Saturday mornings. We had Taylor Hicks on last week, which was fantastic. Watching him in the Legend Cave, which was fantastic.
And a 5-minute clip of that on the Paul Feinbaum show, so we got national exposure for the starting lineup this week, which was awesome.
It was great. Trent Dilfer will join us on the show this Saturday morning talking about the UAB Blazers and hopefully getting a win. Let's start with some of our local teams. We know, obviously, we're going to be talking about this Alabama-Georgia team. It's the game of the century, part 5 or whatever.
Are they playing this week?
Yeah, believe it or not, after the bye week. Tennessee does have the bye week this week, so we got the full attention of one Kai Gregory. He can actually not look at his Tennessee Volunteers for 1 week and really get after the rest of his picks. But Navy, UAB, Not particularly a sexy game. Navy's putting up a ton of points. They're 3-0 in the season. And here's UAB and Trent Dilfer's third year. They're 1-2. And obviously he's got to make some inroads, but they're catching 3.5 at a stadium, quite frankly, where UAB is covering at an 83% clip since they opened that stadium. They do really, really well. Any thoughts on that game before we move on to some of the bigger ones?
That game, I feel the same way I do about the BYU Baylor game. They opened at 2 and 2.5, and I jumped on BYU and Navy 2.5. Now it's 3.5. I'm learning from Case. I'm getting on my plays earlier in the week at a better number. But UAB, it's kind of like I'm going to say the same thing in the Oklahoma and Arkansas game. I'm going to say, Oklahoma Auburn. I'm going to say the same thing in Arkansas Texas A&M. Which team's going to show up? The teams that look good. Which quarterback's going to show up for some of these teams? Navy and UAB seem a little bit more set there in the quarterback position and everything. But I don't like UAB's defense, and I really like the new Navy offense and what they are out and doing and the way they run that. It looks so good watching it.
We jumped all over that over last week against Memphis, and of course also had the Memphis side, which did not cover. But yeah, Navy's offense looks fantastic.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating game, and I will say I'll preface this with I've put all my picks on every game for I think 10 plus years now on LasVegasSun.com, and I feel like if you bet against what I said in Service Academy games, you would probably be able to buy a house right now. I can never figure out these teams. And it's really not just me. I talk to quant guys that are more into numbers than me, and just the numbers sometimes have a hard time figuring them out. That just the way they do things is a little bit different. So with that being said, I'm with Kai this week and like Navy. I wasn't as quick on the trigger finger as him. I liked 2.5, and I was like, I'm always so wrong on Navy. I liked Memphis last week. I'm not going to do it. Then I saw the money pour in on Navy, kind of panicked, and I saw it was one of those situations where the money line wasn't moving fast enough. So I ended up getting Navy minus 140 on the money line. But this is the lowest confidence I ever have because I never get the service academies right. I feel like they're really tricky.
Well, don't feel bad. I cover UAB. I do a show with them every week, and I'm 0-4 on sides and totals with that team. I can't figure them out. And we're going to have Trent again on our television show this weekend. I'm like, give me some information here, man. When Bill Clark was there, I kind of had an idea which way we were going, and I know they like to sling the football around. But, Kip, here's another team where, offensively speaking, UAB was supposed to be lights out unbelievable this year. Of course, Jacob Zeno, he completed 73% of his passes last year. A lot of people are talking about maybe he was a dark horse for a Heisman Trophy this year. He got offered $400,000 to go to an SEC school. We don't know who that was, but here he's at UAB. And last year, 31-6, UAB could not score against this team. Of course, they did that game earlier this season, a couple of weeks back, where their offense just looked inept. So hopefully they can bite back against it. And they got to make, again, if they play different at home. I don't know how to put it. I mentioned they hit 83% clip against the spread. They play really well at protective. So we'll see what happens.
I think they took a big step forward in Fayetteville the following week after the ULM disaster. And Arkansas probably looked at that game and said they just got slaughtered by Monroe. So Arkansas obviously wasn't really ready to play. But still, I think UAB took a couple of steps in the right direction that game. Probably are a little bit more confident football team, losing that game in kind of a shootout, which is more the kind of game you expect UAB to play. And my other skepticism on Navy is, can they do that 2 weeks in a row on the road? I mean, I know they look great, but if we've learned anything from this season, you expect the inconsistent. Are they going to go on the road for a second straight week and be this well-oiled machine? I have my doubts.
Yeah. Case, let's move on to Oklahoma-Auburn. What was the line on Oklahoma-Auburn preseason? Do you know?
I don't actually. I would think just based on remembering what their win totals are and the way they moved, I would think it might be right in this range. Maybe Auburn, the slight favorite instead of Oklahoma, but win total movement. I mean, they were both right around 7.5. I know Auburn took more money against them, where Oklahoma was kind of neutral. So that makes me feel like the market was a little higher on Oklahoma, but being at home, I would guess right around here, but maybe Auburn, the slight favorite. So
why are we looking at Oklahoma as a team that potentially could knock off Tennessee? And obviously they were out of their element there as a 7-point dog, and all of a sudden this really looks like a stinky fish. They're only catching 2.5, or actually giving up 2.5 at Auburn. Why does this game look so weird? Is it just because it's Oklahoma-Auburn?
Yeah, I think it's just a combination of both teams. Both teams have kind of stunk. I mean, I think they both have their issues. They've been swapping quarterbacks back and forth, and no one knows what to make of it. I think the reason why I saw this morning there was some buy back on Oklahoma. It looks like that's trending back towards 3. There is some hype on this quarterback they have stepping in, Hawkins. If you listen to some of the Oklahoma insiders or some of the murmurings during training camp, people started to say maybe Jackson Arnold isn't the guy, and they were worried about losing a Hawkins. Supposedly, he brings a new dimension to the offense. So it seems like people are willing to, the market at least are willing to give the Sooners one more chance, where maybe Auburn's being written off a little bit faster.
Your thoughts there, Kip Keefer?
Again, I'm kind of a contrarian here. I thought Oklahoma looked awful. I thought the Tennessee linemen looked faster than the Oklahoma skill players to me in that game. And I don't put a lot of stock in Hawkins' performance in the second half. Tennessee already knew they were in the house. I don't think the Vols really played all out in the second half. They just wanted to get the W and get the hell out of there. So he's going to have to show me. I think Auburn is a desperate team. If Auburn does not win this game, I think Auburn only wins 4 games this season, because looking at the rest of the schedule, I only see 2 possible wins there, where we had Auburn fans talking about a 5-0 start. If they come out of this 5-game homestand 2-3, it's going to be a disaster. I think this is Custer's last stand in the Plains. I don't like what I saw from Oklahoma, and I would lean Auburn here. As bad as they looked, I think they're the desperate team in this game.
And this is such a typical Auburn team, man, because everyone preseason was saying, if we could start the season 4-0 before that Oklahoma game, we're going to have a shot to start the season 5-0, and look out. And here they are 2-2 going into a game with
we had guests on the radio saying Auburn's going to win 8 or 9 games. You watch. Well, I think that has left the building.
Before we get to the big dog, Georgia, Alabama, Kai, you got any thoughts on this Oklahoma-Auburn game?
I'm going to be interested to see how Oklahoma plays when they actually are playing on freshly cut grass versus that 6-inch grass that Tennessee, had to go up there and play in. A couple of interesting stats, and Auburn does not have, and as a Tennessee fan, it's been like since '98 that Tennessee could say their defense won a game. I mean, with the turnovers that Tennessee had, and then going back and instantly getting turnovers from Oklahoma. I do think Oklahoma is going to be better with their new quarterback. Arnold did not impress me at all. He didn't impress me the entire year. Yes, Tennessee shut it down, but Oklahoma, 16 of their 34 rushes were for 0 or negative yards. 22 of the 45 dropbacks were pressure. They had under 100 yards going into the fourth quarter. I mean, you got to do something. This guy, maybe he wakes him up. And I agree with Kip. Auburn is definitely desperate. And if this was in Oklahoma, I would say Oklahoma wins and wins easily because of the new quarterback and everything going on. But I would tend to think that Auburn may get something here. I do think it's going to be a little bit higher scoring. Just because of the fact that I don't think either defense is as good as people think they are. And I think the only way these two teams have a chance is if they score a lot of points. I don't think you're going to see a 17-10 game. I think you're going to see a 31-27 game.
Wherever you get your favorite podcast, you can check the show out, K4Wins. Go to K4Wins.com for all of our plays. And, of course, we give out everything. All you got to do is watch this show. It's all out there for you. Check it out. You can hear it on Tony Kurre Radio, wherever you get your favorite podcast. We're available on every major industry. Let's talk about the game everyone wants to talk about, Alabama and, of course, Georgia. You've heard the stats. Bama hasn't been a home dog since 2007. It's been 17 years. That, of course, against the LSU Bayou Bengal Tigers. The other thing I think is crazy is Georgia has not lost a regular season game to anyone not named Bama until last COVID, which was 2020. So it's been 4 years. So, I mean, obviously something's got to give. And everyone I've talked to, Kay, says this game is so evenly matched, it should be a pick 'em right now. It appears that Georgia's given up 2. I know it was actually 4.5. It's kind of bouncing around. What are some of the big money dogs out there in Vegas saying about this matchup?
Well, like so many of these big games, I don't have a single bet on this game. I make all my numbers before I look at the board, and I had Georgia 1.5 point favorite, a total of 49. That's exactly basically what you're seeing, 1.5 point favorite, 48.5. And I haven't seen a lot of sharp action on this game yet either. Now that can always change. Limits are going up. Friday is when you're able to get a lot down, so it'll be interesting to see where it goes there. Tying back to Oklahoma, Tennessee real quick, it's just really interesting. I don't know why I didn't look it up when you asked me on the screen, but this game, they opened a line, I think, during the national championship game last year, and it was Georgia -2. Pretty crazy going back to January. It's still the exact same. And Oklahoma, I looked, they were 2.5 when that game opened in May.
Wow.
So both these two huge games have had literally no movement. It shows you how efficient these markets is and how much it seems like change really stay the same. To me, the people I've talked to, and not necessarily sharp people, just, around sports and what people think, I feel like a lot of people are picking Alabama. I know you guys will have a different thought being down there. You probably have a lot more 24/7 coverage. But to me, it seems like the sentiment has kind of shifted in Alabama. And I've gotten away from this where I don't think it's the right strategy. A lot of people when they're new to sports betting are just blindly contrarian. Well, everyone's picking this must be right. I need more reason. But I think hearing so many people pick Alabama kind of has strengthened me that if I had to make a pick on this game to like Georgia, I think one thing being glossed over is the trenches. I know Alabama has been better there. Since they got those guys back, it hasn't been as big of an issue against South Florida. But I just really feel like at the line of scrimmage, maybe Georgia has the biggest advantage in this game. Alabama, this might be a hot take. I might get yelled at by Kip for it, but as far as like a game management and schematic standpoint, I think I might take Alabama's coaching staff over Georgia's. I think they might have more explosive players, but I think all that's close, and you can make an argument either way. I kind of feel like in the trenches that Georgia might have their way here. I think what happened against Kentucky was probably for the best for them. Now, Kirby, and not motivationally, I know Kirby, smart master motivator, great coach. I think motivationally he's going to be telling them, look how bad everyone thinks you guys are. You're not the number one team anymore. I think they're going to be raring and ready to go. So again, I haven't bet this, but I think the line's kind of right, and I think more likely than not, Georgia wins this game.
One, a lot of the people that obviously loved Nick Saban, and there wasn't an Alabama fan that didn't, were looking and licking their chops, looking for anything to jump on this coaching staff in their first year in DeBoer and the rest of the guys. And so far, it's been really quiet, which has been really good for the Alabama Crimson Tide. There's been nothing bad to say about anything in the coaching staff, and you just brought up a great point to sit there and say they actually have an advantage from a coaching staff from top to bottom in this game, more so than Georgia, is just amazing. Kip, what's your thoughts on this game?
I think there's some keys that you have to consider. First of all, Saban, there's 40 guys that were on the Alabama roster last year that are not on that roster now. Obviously, they've got a lot of key places covered. Their offense has not sustained a drive a single game this year. This is the ultimate home run hitting team. If Williams touches if Hollywood touches the ball, he takes it to the house. I think he's got 6 catches, 4 of them have gone for scores. This is the team that masters in the 2 to 4 play drive. I don't think if anything in the game, Georgia is going to be very conscious of taking away, if they can, the big play and make Alabama sustain drives. I'm not so sure this team is built to do that. And I also, with all those players gone, I think depth in this game is a big deal, because if this is the physical slobber knocking game these two teams usually engage in, if 1 or 2 Alabama guys limp off the field, I don't think they really have the depth to match what Georgia does, because Kirby Smart's been building this for several years. He's 3 or 4 deep at every position. You saw the complete mayhem on the Alabama offensive line against South Florida when they had a couple of guys out, and when they finally put one of them that allegedly couldn't play in the fourth quarter, everything started clicking again. But I really think that's a big key to the game. Alabama can't have key players go down. And another really big key to the game that nobody's talking about, Alabama has 2 really talented corners. They're both freshmen. This is the first time they've been on a big stage like this. Teams have gotten behind that secondary, and the quarterbacks of the lousy teams that Alabama has played have not exploited it. I don't think Carson Beck is going to miss a wide open receiver that's 10 yards behind the defense. And I think that's something that is not really being considered much. And of course, the one last thing, Kirby Smart is not going to look across that sideline and see Nick Saban. I think Kirby has made a lot of adjustments and coaching mistakes in the games against Alabama. Even the championship game they won, they had to rally from behind, because I think he's over-prepared and overthought basics of their defense. I think you're going to see relentless pressure on Milroe. I think they're going to get away from playing contain and play aggressive, and I think Georgia just has the edge in this game.
Guy, what you think?
As a fan and as a Tennessee fan, I hope both teams lose. But when you go,
sound like legend now.
I'm going to be pulling for the reps. So I look at it. I agree with what they both said. And who is Alabama's leading rusher? Milroe, right, on the year.
Yep.
So the big plays. When he said it, I went ding ding. That went off in my head. Georgia doesn't give up a whole lot of big plays. I think Georgia's going to be content to try to smash mouth it. I think it probably will be a lower scoring game, but I would have to go with Georgia if I played the game. There's no way I could put the money on Alabama and feel confident there. I would absolutely have to go with Georgia. And the biggest thing to me is the trenches. And again, I don't think Alabama's offensive line can hold up in this game because they still have a couple of their guys banged up. Just because they came back and played doesn't mean they're healthy.
It's going to be a monster game.
Georgia's getting their best player, Tony, Michael Williams, back to play.
Yes, they are.
The anchor of that defensive line. He's been out since the first quarter of the Clemson game to start the season.
So happy to see this game kicking off at nighttime, but I'm actually got invited by my son to go watch the Clemson-Stanford game, and I said, tell me that's not a night game. He's like, it is. I'm like, dude, I love my boy more than anything. I said, you're going to make me sit during this piece of shit Stanford and Clemson game, and I'm going to miss Georgia. He goes, if they're up by 28 at halftime, we can leave. And I'm like, okay, so I'm praying there's a blowout one way or another in that Clemson game.
I don't think they're going to be up 28 at halftime. I think Stanford, it showed last week, they can travel.
Yeah.
I like that Clemson's offense is waking up, but Stanford can travel, and I think the line's 19 right now.
Right? I saw 21. Yeah,
if there's some 20s.
Yeah.
No, if you give me over 21, I would have to think about taking Stanford.
Yeah. There are some just wonderful games this weekend. Oklahoma State, K-State, a pair of 3-1 squads. You got Navy, UAB. We mentioned Oklahoma, Auburn, Georgia, Alabama, FSU, and SMU. SMU favored by 6.5. I don't remember the last time SMU was favored by 6.5 over anyone that even remotely looked like an FSU squad. Arkansas, Texas A&M, Wisconsin, USC. Let's get into some plays here with a few minutes left. Case, let's start with you. Let's go to the desert. What are some plays that are really sticking out to you, man?
You have to talk about UNLV. You have to talk about
UNLV.
That's right.
I guess a couple. The last game you mentioned is one of my bigger bets of the week. I laid it with USC. I'm really not downgrading this team after what happened last week at Michigan. I think we talked about it on the podcast last week that I liked Michigan in that game. I knew their offense was going to be a lot different. First time going to the big house, and I really feel like they acquitted themselves pretty well. That game was pretty evenly matched. I think if you play it again, I'd probably take USC to win outright. And I know Wisconsin's had a little time to prepare now since the quarterback injury. Maybe they've put some things in for Braden Locke, but they just have not looked good ever since Luke Fickell got there. So I have no confidence now that they have a lesser talented quarterback going into play what I still think is a really explosive USC team with a defense that has been better this year. I saw it got as high as like 16.5 yesterday. I think there's been some buyback on USC now. I played USC minus 14. As long as it's still 14.5 or 15, I don't mind laying it there. Yeah, and as far as the UNLV situation, that is going to be extremely interesting. I liked Fresno State in this game to begin with. It opened as high as 4.5. I bet it there. Now with the crazy quarterback news, it has bounced all over the place. I have some insight there so I can answer any questions. I will say the one thing that I think is getting glossed over from what I've seen from the national conversation and stuff is, and it's a lot of he said, she said right now, but if UNLV thought that Matthew Sluka, this kid, was their key to getting to the college football playoff, that he was this good, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind they would have rallied up whatever he wanted.
Explain to some folks down here in the South that perhaps don't get that type of news out there exactly what happened, because it is an amazing story.
So it broke, I think, Tuesday night that UNLV had lost their quarterback. He posted a statement on Instagram, I believe, that said there were promises made to him that weren't kept. So he's going to leave so he can keep his redshirt year and be able to play somewhere else next year. Literally, it later came out, because his dad and his agent are talking for him a lot, that he was promised $100,000 to come to UNLV, of which he says he's received none of other than a relocation stipend. So he basically said, peace, we're out. If you talk to some other people, the story is more that they got off to a 3-0 start. They beat 2 Power 5 teams on the road, Kansas and Houston. And maybe Sluka got an agent in his ear that said, hey, you're worth a lot more money now. And he probably went to the coaching staff, went to UNLV and said, hey, we're a nationally ranked program for the first time. We have a chance. How about you pony up a little more? And I'm not reporting this, but from what I think and from what I've heard, I think UNLV said, well, sorry, no, we're not going to pony up more money. This was a really close quarterback competition all offseason. UNLV kind of shocked a lot of people. They got two of the biggest FCS transfers in at quarterback, Haj Malik Williams, who put up a ton of points with Campbell last week, and Sluka. Sluka didn't show up till late, so Malik Williams was running the offense all through spring ball, and they didn't even announce the starting quarterback till the first game. There were a lot of people that said it should be Malik Williams. He's a lot better passer. Sluka is an absolute gamer. I don't want to make it seem like I'm piling on the kid. He really helped them with a lot of wins, and he's great on his legs. But I think it was really, really close of who they wanted to go with at quarterback. They ultimately ended up going to Sluka. So my take on it is, then Sluka asked for more money, and they said, we think we're just as good with Malik Williams. We're not going to be blackmailed for, paying this guy $500,000 or whatever he wanted. And I think they were content to stick with the other quarterbacks. And now that there's been so much movement, I can't give out Fresno State plus 1.5 in good faith, because I really don't think UNLV is going to be that much worse. I still think Fresno State probably wins the game, but UNLV long-term, probably a bye to me, because there wasn't a big drop-off between their first and second quarterbacks, in my opinion.
You just mentioned blackmail, and there are some state representatives saying now this could be in violation of a state law that's basically extorting money from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. You can't say, listen, you made a deal with me, and now I'm not going to play because I'm not getting this money, even if it's a pay-for-play situation, at least according to the NCAA. So the NCAA is not dead yet, so this may be a state violation. Give me some other plays, Case, real quick before we let you we roll on the horn here.
I guess off the top of my head, a team I've given out on Kip's show a lot. I did once again this week on the starting
Sam
lineup.
Houston State.
I give them out. Actually,
I took them, baby. I took them. They won by 20. I know.
Why are they getting 8 points?
But I did bet Sam Houston plus 9. I think they're just as good as Texas State, who I'm also high on. I took Sam Houston State plus 9, San Diego State plus 3 at Central Michigan. And what I was actually going to say on Kip's show, I gave out East Carolina minus 3.5.
That's your team.
Yeah, this is the third week they've been my best bet. But UTSA is just a mess right now. I think people see them. They've been so good for the last 4 or 5 years with Coach Traylor down there and Frank Harris at the controls. This year, they've just, it's like a total rebuild. ECU, they've been building towards this moment. I know they ultimately didn't cover against Liberty last week, but only 3.5 seemed a little cheap to me. So there's some lower level games I like: ECU, San Diego State, and I had to take the plus 9.5 with Sam Houston.
Guy, things jumping out at you. What'd you see?
Well, hey, first I wanted to point out before the season, our very first show, we gave out some team totals, and we didn't talk about it last week, but we had Florida State under 9.5, which actually cashed last week under 9.5 wins. It was the very first
that's already over.
On over-unders.
That? The easiest win of your life.
That's pretty good 3 games into the season to catch.
That's awesome.
There's a lot of good games that I really like this weekend. I mean, I like the Kentucky Ole Miss. A lot of these games, though, are going to depend on the weather to me. I like playing totals a lot, and a lot of these things are going to depend on the weather, just like that one, because I kind of think Ole Miss, that's more like their Wake Forest game, the 40-6 game, something like that. Oklahoma State, Kansas State. I would lean K-State because, the long-haired quarterback, he's Johnson. He's been playing pretty well. So, looking at that, I talked about, BYU, Baylor, and Navy, UAB. Arkansas, Texas A&M, at 52 total, I think, still. I'm looking at the weather, which Arkansas team's going to show up in that. I'm really, really liking Boise State against Washington. If that game stays at 7 or under, I saw it creep up, I think, to 7.5. I like the over in that game as well. Some other interesting games: Louisville and Notre Dame. Notre Dame's 6.5 against that Louisville team.
Louisville's undefeated.
45.
Yeah.
Watching the line kind of go up, and then, but there are so many good games this weekend with good lines. I'm glad that we don't have a whole bunch of 47-point favorites this week.
Starting lineup, big show going on Saturday mornings at ABC 3340 along with Kip Keefer. I'm Tony Kurre. We're going to have our lineup and, of course, our best bets and our dogs of the week. My dog of the week hit last week. Your best bet hit. We're hitting at least one of those bad boys every single week, which is good. We have not had a losing week yet on the starting lineup, so we've been hot all around the horn here. Kip, what are some games you like? And obviously, you have to watch the television show to get some of your other plays, but what are some games you really love this weekend?
Well, Kai mentioned the Kentucky Ole Miss game. It's an SEC game. Kentucky has a big-time defense. The South Carolina game was an aberration. You saw their front seven with some very notable players step up against Georgia. They're catching 17.5 or 18 at Ole Miss. I know Ole Miss has been rolling over everybody, but who's everybody? Look at the schedule they've played. It's pathetic. This is a real defense they're playing against this week. I don't think Kentucky's going to go to Oxford and win the game, but I'm taking close to 3 touchdowns here because it's an SEC league game, and we saw last week with Missouri getting way too much credit against Vanderbilt. When you strap it on to play in the SEC, you're going to have a war on your hands, and I really think Kentucky is going to play a good game here. This is kind of an obscure game. I was very impressed that the Buffalo Bulls went into Northern Illinois last week after Northern Illinois had beaten Notre Dame and won that game outright. Now they go to UConn, who I don't think anything of that program. I know they're making a few strides, but they have to because they were on just rock bottom. And I was amazed to see UConn as a 2-point favorite. I'm taking the Buffalo Bulls against the Huskies all day long. This isn't a basketball game. And I don't know. I look around. I already told you that I like Georgia in their game. As far as another pick, I had somebody else slated here. Now I've had a senior moment and forgotten. But that's my main ones. Oh, I also like Kai also mentioned Louisville, Notre Dame. I think Louisville's probably got as good a personnel as Notre Dame. I know it's beneath the specter of touchdown Jesus in South Bend, but I'll take a touchdown there. Give me the Cardinals over Notre Dame.
I'm going to go ahead and start off. I got 3 plays that I really like. I'm going to go with those Auburn Tigers, and I normally don't like to bet. I hate betting on the St. Louis Cardinals in Major League Baseball because I hate that team, and I'm not a big Auburn fan. But I get a feeling that I think Hugh Freeze is a good coach. I really do. I don't say he's a great coach, but I think he's a good coach. I love what he did at Liberty. I like what he did at Ole Miss before he got fired and went through the 1-900 stripper service. But this is their game. This is the game right here. Even with 2 losses, there are Auburn fans that I'm friends with that actually are talking playoffs. They're actually saying, well, you can lose 2 games and make the playoffs. And I'm like, okay, yeah. On. And I'm like, well,
you go to Georgia, Missouri, and Kentucky.
I know you've lost. Well, but that's what you got to tell yourself, right? That's what you got to, because you were expecting to start the season 4-0 or maybe 5-0, knocking off Oklahoma, and you're going to be a top 10 team. So you have to BS yourself at this point at 2-2. I just think this game's too big. You're catching some points. You're getting it at home. It's a tough place to play. I'm going to take the Auburn Tigers plus the 2. Kai, you mentioned some over-unders. 2 teams that are playing each other in the Big Ten. They're both undefeated, which is hard to believe, but they're both scoring tons of points. Maryland and Indiana, that over-under opened at 57.5. I'm seeing it 52.5 this morning just because both teams have been inept in the past, but they're both averaging over 40 points a ball game. Their defenses, believe it or not, been playing pretty good, but they've been playing nobody. They're not playing anybody, and now you got 2 really good offenses. I think this could be a shootout. It could be a 35-30 game at halftime. I'm going to take the over 52.5 in Maryland, Indiana. And also, that poor FSU. I got a friend of mine that works up at Fox 6, Jeremy, who is just a huge FSU fan, and every time I see him, he's just down. I mean, he's down 7 days a week because FSU is just that bad at 1-3 right now. And here they are, 6.5-point dog. I don't know what I'm assuming that FSU was favored by 10 to 12 or something over SMU to start the season. That line's moved 2 touchdowns, and I can't believe SMU is actually favored by 6.5. That's a head scratcher to me, but that just tells you how bad FSU is. FSU is either going to score a ton of points or they're going to mail this thing in early. And I think either way, that total is going to go over 47 because I know SMU could put up some points. So I'm going to take the over in that game as well. So those are the 3 plays. Before we go here, again, get all of our free wins, free plays right here, K4Wins.com, K4Wins.com to get all of our plays. Check out the website. It's fantastic. You can get all of our plays we have on our show every single week. Anything in the National Football League look good. And by the way, I got a couple emails here saying you guys talk only college football. Can we get a pro show? That at info@TonyCurryRadio.net. We're open for anything. So we want to throw some cash at us. We'll do a pro show because we've been hitting pretty good. But anything in the National Football League case that's jumping out at you.
Man, I have bets on basically every game as usual. I guess a couple. I'll just go with the couple top from my column at LasVegasSun.com on the top of my head. I know we've butted head on this team a lot so far this year, but I actually like the Bears this week, which is a reversal, of course, for me because I'm against this team almost every week. But the Rams are just so beaten up, and I think the market hasn't fully accounted for it because of the way they came back and beat the 49ers on one of the flukiest outcomes of the year so far in the NFL. I know it's now mostly 3. I'd always really prefer to get that 2.5. I bet 1, but if you could still get Bears minus 2.5, I like that. And another team that has flummoxed me, and I have been wrong time and time again, but I'm going back to the wall this week. I'm going to take the Colts as a home underdog against the Steelers. I don't know what magic potion that Pittsburgh has, but somehow they win all these games anyway. But I think the world of Shane Steichen as an offensive mind, and the Steelers defense has been great, but I think he will be able to draw up some things to get to them. I think it'll be a close game, so getting a couple points there is too much to me. So yeah, off the top of my head, Colts +2, Bears -2.5. You can get those. I like those two sides.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Tony, I had a good NFL week last week, and I really like the Saints to go into Atlanta. I can't believe they're getting 2 points. I think that's some big overreaction from the Philadelphia game, which was just a really solid, physical, back-and-forth football game that they barely lost. The Falcons played the Chiefs tough, but I don't really believe in this Falcons team, although I do admire that they've made some progress. But I think Raheem Morris was a terrible choice for head coach, and I thought his strategy down the stretch in that game with the Chiefs was catastrophic. So I like the Saints. I'm also liking the Packers here. The Vikings have been on a roll. I was all over the Vikings last week against the Texans. Now they go to Lambeau Field. And I like this Packers team. I love how they closed the season out last year. They went down to Tennessee and spanked the Titans last week. They're just a slight favorite over the Vikings, who may be getting a little bit too much love. I like the Packers. And the other game I like, the Commanders just had one of those weeks in the NFL where everything they threw up, everything they did worked. Now they're going to Arizona to play the Cardinals, who have been in a really good place. That line is pretty skimpy at 3.5. I don't think the Commanders can do that on the road 2 weeks in a row. Give me Arizona.
And I got to tell you something. I'm worried about my Bengals.
You should be worried.
We're 4 games in. They've lost to the 3 worst teams in the National Football League. I mean, you want to talk about 4-0. It was marked down 4-0 on my calendar. I was supposed to go to that Carolina game this Sunday. I'm not going. I got to change something. I got to sit on the other end of the couch. I got to turn the game off. I got to do something because this team just sucks. They look great against Kansas City. They lose by 1 point, but they looked horrible against everyone else. Kai,
the defense was awful.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And I'm tired of seeing McPherson out there. I want to see some touchdown passes. I'm not seeing it from week to week. Kai, any thoughts on NFL real quick before we go?
Joe got his new hairdo, and clearly that's helping him with the new
I think they took part of his brain too, man.
Yeah. That Washington-Arizona game, I got circled. I really think there's probably going to be some points scored in that. Jaden Daniels isn't going to be stopped from, shut out from scoring some points. I think they'll score. Murray, what he's been doing with Arizona, I think that probably is going to go over that total of 50. I really like that. How about undefeated and leading the league in scoring Buffalo at Baltimore? Mm-hmm. I think that game could go over. I do like Baltimore's defense, though. I mean, I always have. It's just something with that. Of course, the game tonight looks really good. I think that game probably goes over that total as well. And I love New Orleans and over in that game. 42.5 for those two teams. And New Orleans is going to first Dallas, and then last week they come out and their offense sucks. So you never really know. But I think New Orleans, and you're not supposed to bet that game, New Orleans at Atlanta. You're not supposed to take New Orleans. Just like, who was it? Cincy -4 at Carolina. Always been told my entire life in the NFL, never bet a 4-point game. Don't know why, but never bet a 4-point favorite. Never have. So I'm not going to touch it, but I would say that Cincinnati comes out. I think Andy Darnold was a one-hit wonder last week against his old team, and I think reality comes back to Carolina this week.
All right, check out our website, K4Wins.com, K4Wins.com for all of our plays you heard right here in case you don't want to listen to the entire show. It's really, really good. We do the show every single week, and it's released this week by a Thursday afternoon, usually a Friday, so you got plenty of time to handicap your games. And again, check out our TV show, ABC's 3340. It is the starting lineup with Kip Keefer and myself, Tony Kurre, with more free plays, not to mention, of course, our Dogs of the Week, which we're nailing at a pretty good clip. play some money line action going on here. Guys, thank you so much. Till next week.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.